There are moments in life that break you open. Not gently, not privately, but in front of strangers under a wide open sky with nowhere to hide. That afternoon at Clearwater Beach was supposed to be simple. Just sun, sand, and the kind of peace I had been chasing for years. I wore a one-piece swimsuit, dark navy modest. I had chosen it carefully the way I always do, because underneath it, running from my left shoulder all the way down to my hip, are scars. Deep, permanent, unmistakable. The kind of scars that make strangers stare and children ask questions their parents whisper answers to. I have carried those scars for 11 years. And in those 11 years I had made peace with them, quietly, painfully, and completely on my own. My name is Clara. I'm 34 years old. I spent 8 years serving in the United States Navy before a rescue operation in the North Atlantic changed the shape of my body and the course of my life forever. But that afternoon, standing at the edge of the water with salt water around my ankles, I wasn't a veteran. I wasn't a hero. I was just a woman trying to breathe. My younger sister Danielle had invited me on this trip. She said she wanted us to reconnect. She said she missed me. And foolishly, hopefully, I believed her. I had always wanted the sister relationship I saw in movies, the kind where two women hold each other up. Danielle and I had never quite had that. She was louder, prettier in the conventional way, always surrounded by friends who laughed too easily at things that weren't funny. But I came. I packed my bag, drove 4 hours, and I came. The beach was crowded that Saturday. Families with coolers and umbrellas. Teenagers taking photos. Couples walking hand in hand. It was beautiful in the way that coastlines always are. Like the world is reminding you it's bigger than your pain. I waded into the shallow water, letting the waves brush against my knees. For just a moment I felt it, that rare, fragile feeling. The thing about Danielle is that her cruelty was never loud and obvious. It was careful. Surgical. She knew exactly how to slide a knife between your ribs and smile while doing it. Growing up, I was always the serious one, studious, quiet, more interested in maps and history books than parties. Danielle was the social one, the one my mother lit up for. And somewhere along the way, my seriousness became something she resented. When I joined the Navy at 22, she told our relatives I was running away from real life. When I came home after the accident, after the operation, after the months of rehabilitation, after learning to sleep through the nightmares, she visited once. Once. She brought flowers, stayed 40 minutes, and spent most of that time on her phone. I never held it against her. I told myself she didn't know how to handle hard things. I made excuses the way younger siblings always do for the people they still want to love them. But standing in that water, hearing her voice cut through the sound of the waves, I felt something in me go very still. She wasn't finished. When I came back to our towels, she was sitting with a group of her friends who had joined us. Women I barely knew, women who looked at me with that polite, pitying discomfort that is somehow worse than open disgust. She was in the military, Danielle said, by way of explanation. The word military came out of her mouth the way people say eccentric, like it explained everything strange about me. Were you in combat? One of her friends asked, eyes drifting to my shoulder. Rescue operations, I said simply. Danielle smiled tightly. She always makes it sound so dramatic. That sentence landed like a stone dropped from a great height. So dramatic. 11 years of silence. 11 years of not talking about what happened on that ship, what it sounded like when the water came in, what it felt like to pull 3 sailors to safety while something tore through my own side. 11 years. My name is Rear Admiral James Holloway, he said. I commanded that fleet. The world seemed to slow. 3 of my men came home because of what you did that night, he continued, his voice steady and low. One of them is my son. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I have thought about whoever pulled those men from that water for over a decade, he said. I never knew your name. I never got to say thank you. He reached into his shirt pocket and handed me a photograph, worn at the edges, clearly carried for years. 3 young men laughing, standing on a dock. Alive. I held it with both hands and I wept. Not from pain this time. From something I had forgotten was possible, being seen. Being truly fully seen. We sat together for nearly an hour. He asked about my life, my recovery, what I had done since leaving the service. He listened the way people rarely do, with his whole attention. When we finally stood to go, He asked if he could share my story at a naval ceremony he was attending the following month. I said yes. What happened next I could not have written myself. As we walked back up the beach toward the towels, the Admiral beside me, Danielle, saw us approaching. I watched her face move through confusion, then curiosity, then something shifting beneath the surface as the Admiral stopped. He introduced himself, rank and name, and then he did something quiet and devastating. He turned to Danielle and said simply, "Your sister saved 3 lives at great personal cost. I hope you know how remarkable she is." He said it without drama, without cruelty, just fact, delivered with the weight of someone who had earned the authority to speak it. Danielle's face went through a dozen expressions in the span of 3 seconds. She looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time. She said nothing. There was nothing to say. I didn't feel triumph. I want to be honest about that. I didn't feel the hot satisfaction I might have expected. What I felt was something